back to the Vermont Room and welcome to lunch. My name is Samantha Fenderson. I'm the Assistant Director for Maine Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And I'm sure when you all return home next week, you're going to wake up with the thought of, please complete your evaluations. So please, as a reminder, the committees do appreciate the feedback that you give. It does help in planning future conferences. So I'd like to once again thank our sponsors, Market Decision Research for the breakfast that we had this morning, RPEN for the all-day coffee station, and Alliance for providing portion of the expenses for this conference. And I would like to hand it over to Dr. Kate Anderson. And Kate is the principal investigator at the University of Wisconsin and the current president for RPEN. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I hope that you are all enjoying your lunch. You've had a few minutes to settle in before we start our presentation on the PEQA capstones. Oh, thank you very much for cueing the slides. And before we dive into our presentation, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the folks up here on stage. So we have Dr. Sue P. from Michigan State University. We have Jacob Choi from South Carolina, VR. We have Chris Claus from Missouri, VR. And we have Elaine Robertson from South Carolina Commission for the Blind. And Douglas, would you like to come up for a moment? So Douglas Hsu is our project officer at RSA, and we would like to thank you for your ongoing support. RSA has funded PEQA through a cooperative agreement, which really means that we have the opportunity for partnership and collaboration and kind of designing, refining, and moving things forward together. So it's an absolute pleasure working with Douglas, and thank you again for your support. So PEQA really represents a partnership, and I'm going to provide a little bit of background for those of you that may not be familiar, or this might be your first summit conference. PEQA really is a collaboration, again, between the University of Wisconsin Stout Folk Rehab Institute, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Michigan State University, CSAVR, the Summit Group, RSA, and really all of you as our partners in the agencies and representing the agencies around the country. PEQA is one of several of the technical assistance centers funded by RSA right now. And within PEQA, really our program is designed around an online certificate program, which is our version of intensive technical assistance, aligned with the Capstone Project, which our participants, and you're going to hear more about their excellent work here today. The capstones offer an opportunity to apply what you've been learning in the coursework in practice. So developing a meaningful project, activity, analysis, something that's going to be helpful in the state agency, and that could be replicated elsewhere and or serve as a blueprint for further evaluation. We also have advanced workshops, which I think some of you participated in on Wednesday afternoon. We had advanced workshops on low-cost program evaluation tools as well as quality assurance. Typically, we align the advanced workshops with the summit conferences. We also offer advanced workshops online, and we are discussing further opportunities to kind of expand some of the advanced workshop options in year 5. Communities of practice, it's an absolute pleasure partnering with the Summit Group and the Summit Navigators on this project. Summit has been around as a community of practice a lot longer than PEQA has been around, and so we really value the friendship, the partnership, and the collaboration that that is formed kind of through this process. PEQA and the funding provided by RSA really has provided us an opportunity to kind of infuse some additional resource and funding to help grow and expand this conference, although we didn't used to call it the conference, right? It was the summit. It was the summit. PEQA has also added through Terry Donovan, and Terry is here. Oh, there's Terry Donovan. And Terry has been facilitating additional community practice around specific to quality assurance, and really doing that on a monthly basis to engage in dialogue around quality assurance issues and share information among colleagues. And then again, the active collaboration we have. The PEQA coursework, the online coursework, is designed and formatted around domains. So domain 1 provides an overview of evaluation. Domain 2 focuses on research methods. Domain 3, data collection. Domain 4, data analysis. Domain 5, application and reporting, and then domain 6 is really kind of a catch-all repository of research, resources, et cetera, that can be utilized at any time. I'm not going to run through this entire list for you, but this is a list of all of the state programs that are currently participating in PEQA. And again, we'll make these slides available through the app and through the conference website for those that would like them. If you think you're participating in PEQA, but you don't see your agency on this list, feel free to come and talk to me. There might be other additional information. Or if you see your name on this list and you didn't realize that your state was participating in PEQA, you're also welcome to contact me, and we're happy to help connect you. In terms of the learning goals, the overarching learning goals of PEQA, it's really designed to help build and enhance capacity around program evaluation and quality assurance in partnership with our state agencies. And so going through the process, which it has been a fairly intensive technical assistance process, which I think those who have worked with PEQA will probably attest to. It does take some time to get through, but it's really fun now to see things coming to fruition, and we've got the products, and we've got folks completing and graduating the program. I'm not going to run through all the learning goals, but essentially it's designed to help enhance and build capacity around program eval and quality assurance. Sue, do you want to take this, or do you want me to take this and then turn it over? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Sue, because Sue is really doing a beautiful job coordinating the capstone design and coordination with our mentors through Michigan State.
I'm actually doing the Capstone Project, but I'm working with Dr. Michael Leahy, who is a professor at the Michigan State University. We are actually grateful to be invited in part of the PEQA project. Our job is just about the Capstone Project, so we can actually organize it and then just help each participant to go through the Capstone procedure. As already, Casey already said, the Capstone Project is just give the participant has an opportunity to apply their online learning to their own project. So we actually share the same goals and same objectives, but basically we actually give them an opportunity to actually apply all the research program and the procedure from the topic selection and then the purpose and the development of a research question, and also all the methodology. So that's actually what we are going to do. And then just the capstone procedure is just start from the beginning. So when they complete the application, they need to talk about the capstone project. Usually it is not really aligned to their own kind of the real project, but they can actually think about the capstone project in the beginning. It's like the PhD program. So when you actually start the PhD program, the first question is they ask about dissertation. So, but they usually change the capstone project based on the agency priority and their need. So before we actually have the interview with them, we usually strongly encourage them to talk with the state director or the close supervisor, so they can actually have the same position, and also they will select really kind of priority topics. And in the case, they can actually have the support and also a little bit push up from them. So it's actually starting that, and just we have the interview. And when they actually have finished the interview, we actually ask them to fill out the brief research plan. So it's just about 5 or 6 questions, 1 pages, but they will actually briefly talk about the overall of the capstone procedure. And then after we get it, we just have to assign them actually each mentor. We have a great pool of the mentor, the Kate, and then the Todd Hager from the Mathematica, Dr. Tim Tenji, Dr. Michael Leahy, and myself, and also the newly with Dr. Marla Kipicha from the Wisconsin as medicine. So that's actually the mentor, so they can actually work. Each step, the mentor will be there. So they will actually provide some feedback and also some help for the design and the data analysis and everything. I would like to give some just the information about the Capstone Handbook, because we have the PEQA Handbook and also we have the separate the Capstone Handbook. Capstone Handbook has some the procedural information, and also at the end of the handbook, we have section of the resources. So it's a pretty the comprehensive list of the research has been done. We actually categorize and cross-reference by each topic. So all the Capstone participants can access to all the articles and the previous study. So that's really the benefit of that.
Okay, so quick current status of PEQA. So we have recruited and enrolled and have 6 separate cohorts underway. And the cohorts started fall and spring of each year, so October 1st and April 1st. We are no longer enrolling any additional cohorts because we want to ensure that we have enough time for our current participants to successfully complete the program. We currently have 49 participants across 35 state agencies. 32 of our participants are working individually, and we have 17 participants that are working as 6 teams, which is kind of a feature that we added in as we've been kind of evolving the project. Of the agencies, we have 10 blind VR agencies, 12 combined, and 13 general programs. 6 capstones are completed, 15 capstones underway. We had 23 that were initiated, but we had 2 participants that needed to withdraw for various reasons. So, quick show of hands. Raise your hand if you either are currently a PEQA participant or are a former PEQA participant. Excellent, excellent. Well, this is great. So if you are a if you're a former PEQA participant, thank you. And if you are a current PEQA participant, this will be you in the coming conferences this year. So we would like to continue our graduation ceremony at the fall CSAVR conference, spring CSAVR, and then again next year at Summit, so that everybody has an opportunity to shine. And this is the part that I've been looking forward to for weeks. So now you get to see the real stars of the show. We're the backdrop. These are the folks that have been doing all the hard work. So Jacob Choi, Chris Claus, and Elaine Robertson, congratulations. Excellent work. You've put in a lot of time, and I think you have fantastic findings and projects that you're going to share with us. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob, and he'll share an overview of his capstone with you.
Well, good afternoon. I am Jacob Choi from South Carolina, from the General Agency. And before I present my project, I do want to take the opportunity to thank everybody who made this possible. I have benefited tremendously from the training and the technical assistance that's been provided. I feel very confident that I'm going to be able to apply this to my day-to-day work. And I don't have time to name everybody, but I did want to give a special thank you to Sue, to Todd Honeycutt, who was my project mentor, and to Margaret Allewine, my supervisor, who just happens to be the first person in the country to have completed the certificate training. So it was very nice to have somebody supervising me who understood what was being asked of me and made time available for me to work on that. So thank you, each of you. For my capstone project, I evaluated our Information Technology Training Center, which we refer to as the ITTC. This program has agency staff who deliver directly training in computer programming, business applications, computer-aided drafting, and network and server support. It's a comprehensive program, meaning that we provide lodging in dorms there on the West Columbia, South Carolina campus. Also, meals and nursing are provided on site. The purpose of the project was to evaluate the effectiveness of the program in delivering training that leads to competitive, integrated employment outcomes in occupations that are related to the training that's received there. Our evaluation questions were: what courses are leading to successful outcomes or status 26 closures? How do participant outcomes compare to non-participant consumers that the agency serves who have similar vocational objectives? That is, they're pursuing the same types of jobs. And thirdly, what are the average program expenditures and how do they compare to expenditures for the general program consumers? The project used a non-experimental design, quantitatively analyzing existing program data from the case management system, Excel spreadsheets that are kept by program staff, and the agency's accounting system. There were 114 consumers who were served by this center during the 3-year study period, which ran from July 2015 to June 2018. And from those 114 who were served, we pulled a target group for the analysis of outcomes data, which was 55 participants whose training courses had ended and whose cases had been closed, whether successfully or unsuccessfully. A comparative sample was pulled, which included 2,150 agency consumers who were not served by the ITTC, but who did have vocational objectives that were in common with consumers served by the program, and whose cases had closed during the study period. So what we found was that the Business Applications Plus course, which had the shortest duration and served the largest number of consumers during this period, led to the most successful employment outcomes, as well as the highest proportion of successful outcomes related to the training received. That was about 85%. The computer programming course, which is the longest course offered, had the highest rehabilitation rate, with 2 of every 3 trainees achieving a successful outcome. However, only a third of those successful outcomes were in an occupation related to the training. So that was kind of disappointing. And I'll refer you to the poster. It's the middle one over there that has all the details. I'm not going to have time to go through all of the data, of course. But you'll see a little bit more in there about the computer programming course and its outcomes. And that course actually was discontinued during the process of me doing this evaluation. It was replaced with another course. So average hourly wages at case closure for our ITTC participants turned out to be higher than wages for members of the comparative sample with the same occupation. Expenditures for the program on average were 4.84 times the expenditures per consumer in the general program. Now again, this is a comprehensive program. We expected that the costs would be higher because we're lodging these consumers, providing meals and nursing. So this evaluation allowed us to see just how much higher the expenditures were on an average basis. Again, these data are available on the poster. I just want to highlight a few things from the findings. For the consumer served section, Seats are limited in these courses, and it has been a struggle at times to enroll a full capacity of how many consumers we could serve. So we had 122 total seats available for the sections of these courses that were offered during the 3 years. So we filled 114 of those 122 seats, a little over 93% of capacity. However, if you move down in the tables under completion, the completion rate was just a tad under 63% program-wide. And if you factor in those empty seats, we actually only had completers for about 58% of the capacity that we could have served in the program. And there's a breakdown in the tables by course of what this looked like. And again, if you review the table, you'll see that the programming course had some red flags when we looked at this compared to the other courses. Let me back up 1 second. I should have mentioned 2 of the courses, the computer-aided drafting and the network and server support, offered certifications. And so our consumers had the opportunity to receive certifications during the course of their training, which we hoped would lead to better outcomes as far as earnings and hours worked. And we did see some of that. So overall for the ITTC, during this 3-year study period, there was a 58.2% rehab rate, which was higher than the comparative sample, and it was also higher than the agency as a whole. But again, going back to, we wanted to look at, are these outcomes related to the training that was received? Only 68.8% were in an occupation related to the training. Weekly hours worked were favorable compared to the comparative sample and the agency as a whole. Average earnings were a little bit higher as well. So there were some positives and some negatives to take out of the findings, and it led into a lot of follow-up conversations, and our agency leadership continues to discuss those findings and what the best thing would be to do with what we've learned. For me personally, what stood out with this evaluation and how it could have been improved is that I could have included data collection on previous IT experience and training, both for the ITTC participants and for the comparative sample. That probably would have strengthened the analysis of the outcomes data had we known that. One of the implications of the evaluation findings is that the agency shouldn't just assume that the program is needed as designed. The ITTC began in an era before the ADA when it provided an opportunity for consumers to receive a specialized training that would not have been available to them otherwise. Today, in the ADA era, colleges and universities have disability services departments. They provide accommodations that are needed. And so one of the things that we found is there were similarities in our program to a program that used to be run in Chicago. They had some of the same issues with not being able to fill all of their seats. Not necessarily everybody who enrolled was considered to be the highest quality candidate for what they hoped the outcomes would be. And so that program was discontinued. We don't know if that's necessary, but we're having the conversations now of, in today's landscape, does it make sense to deliver these services as they're currently designed, or should we look at some alternatives, maybe sponsor training through technical colleges or other training providers? And finally, one thing that I wish I had done to improve the project would have been to practice my data analysis and interpretation using mock data. I think that would have allowed me to work out some of the kinks and be a little bit more confident with the types of analyses that would be appropriate and understanding what decisions could be made from findings if we had practiced using some mock data. So in the absence of having done that, Todd was very helpful in identifying what types of analyses would work for the data I was working with and to be able to answer those evaluation questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
All right, good afternoon. As you can probably see, nope, I need to advance the slide. There we go. My name is Claus, and I'm with Missouri General VR. and I'm excited to share an overview of my project with all of you. Give you just a little bit of context for what I did with this project. What we designed, not too long after WIOA came into law, we created a summer work experience program in Missouri as part of our pre-employment transition service initiative. And so one of the things we've known since then is that the summer work experience has been a way for us to comply with that mandate, but we really recently have been starting to ask questions around, well, how do we know it's working? How is it working? How is it informing what we're doing? How might we better understand how it might be impacting our ability to actually help people, students with disabilities in particular, get jobs after they exit high school. So that's really kind of the motivation behind this project is I wanted to take a little bit deeper dive into our program and look and try to answer some of those questions. And as I share the results, I think you'll see, even though some of the results, even the main results were kind of surprising and maybe a little bit disappointing personally when you see them, I think through this process we've really started to ask ourselves different questions and new questions that I am quite confident are going to lead us to allowing ourselves to make this program even stronger. So here are, it's pretty small I realize, but kind of a high-level overview of the project. We've known, the literature's pretty clearly shows that there's a fair amount of correlational evidence in particular to support the fact that early work experiences benefit students with disabilities. So if you have, you're more likely to have a successful job after you exit high school if you've had early work experiences. And again, summer work experience, as I mentioned in Missouri, it is a project that we designed in early 2015. And so this is a service we've offered every summer since. So essentially, in a nutshell, what the summer work experience is it is a service that's designed for VR-eligible students with disabilities who are entering their final year of high school. So kind of what we might think of as traditional emerging seniors, if you will. We try to target students who have not had any work experience. We try to prioritize in that way. We also ensure that all of the sites, the job sites that the students are working at are competitive integrated settings. Kind of the structure of the service itself is it's a 20-hour per week for 6-week program. 16 of those hours the students are working, so they're at the job doing work. The other 4 hours they are engaged in a classroom type activity designed to enhance social skills, and we use Skills to Pay the Bills curriculum and some other curriculums that have been put out there to do that. The project is supported by our work with our community rehabilitation programs, so those folks are on site, not necessarily providing job coaching, but there to provide supervision, and they lead the soft skill training course. And I don't think I mentioned it, but all the students are paid minimum wage throughout that experience. So, and that again happens prior to their final year of high school. So what we wanted to do with this project, what I wanted to do with this project is really better understand how it might be working, how it might be contributing to, like I said, successful employment outcomes, because we really don't know that, to be quite honest, really well. We know it's popular. We've had, I think our first summer we had around 150 students, and every summer since then we've had between 600 and 700 students participate. The anecdotal evidence is overwhelming from schools, from parents, from the students. People are getting a lot of benefit for lots of obvious reasons from this program. But again, back to trying to better understand how is it fitting into our mission of supporting people in their pursuit of competitive employment outcome after high school, we weren't quite sure. So the main research question here is just very simply, are summer work experience participants more likely to exit VR with employment than those who did not participate? This turned out to be a much harder question to answer than I anticipated, but here's kind of how I attacked it. We kind of looked at it from a treatment and control group perspective. So the treatment group was just quite simply summer work experience participants. In 2015, and of course, if we're wanting to know how many of those folks actually exited with employment, we need to be looking at cases that were closed. So in 2015, as of January 1st, 2019, when I pulled the data, the participants who participated in 2015, 92% of those students had their case closed at that point. In 2016, it was 82%. In 2017, it was 52%. So I didn't include 18 and 19 because the number of participants whose cases closed was just pretty small for obvious reasons. They're still kind of working through the system. The control group was the big challenge. So we kind of had to make some decisions around how do we want to try to define something that might represent a control group. And so what we did was we looked at 3 factors: application date, how old they were at application, and in this case, the summer work experience is an IPE connected service. So we started with those 3 factors. 98% of the students who participated in the summer work experience applied between April of 2015 and May of 2017. So we use that as one of our parameters. And 98% of the students were age 16, 17, or 18 at application. So that was a third parameter. So on my next slide here in just a second, I'll share some of the descriptive statistics. Kind of what I did was I first just looked at the basic descriptive statistics based off the treatment and control group. And then because this service was not randomly assigned, really tried to then use some linear regression, linear probability model, and a little bit of propensity score analysis to try to get at, is there anything going on there that we might be able to account for in spite of the fact that we didn't have a randomized control situation. I apologize for this being so small, but the big takeaway from this is the second column from the left is our summer work experience, and all of the data is on the poster over here, the second one from the left. There were 816 students in the treatment group. There were 2,005 in the control group. And this was the part that was slightly, maybe more than slightly, disappointing. When we looked at successful outcomes, actually 58% of the non-summer work experience participants achieved a successful outcome, and 50% of the summer work experience participants. So that was kind of like, Not only was that a little disappointing, I think it was a question about kind of more of, this is the part that led to more questions. Well, what does that mean? What might be going on here? So here, just real briefly, I'll kind of hit the highlights. On the left-hand side are the results of the 2 linear probability models that we used. The first model, Model 1, is just essentially the same as it includes no controls. No control variables were included. And what we see is that students who participate in the summer work experience, as we saw from the descriptive results, are about 8% less likely to exit successfully. And when we add in controls for age and race and gender and disability status, we see that change slightly to 9% less likely. So again, kind of wondering what's going on. In working with Sue, she really challenged me to also look at the distribution. What does the overall distribution look like? And so we used the propensity score methodology to do that. And essentially, what the propensity score does is it uses those observable characteristics to try to estimate the probability that that particular participant was in the summer work experience treatment group, and then takes those and matches them, treatment and control, and then based on those scores, and then stratifies that over 5 different quintiles over distribution. So the big takeaway from the graphic on the right-hand side there is that even at each of those 5 points, we still see that difference. So what does that mean? How does that fit into, what does this inform, and what are we going to take away from this? So I think one of the things was just quite honestly, or quite directly, you can see from the results I showed that the way I had this set up, it tells us that the summer work experience did not positively impact outcomes. But I think more importantly, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's kind of counterintuitive to think that this program is actually causing someone to have worse outcomes when the students are just simply having this work experience. So I think a big part of what's going on, and this is where I think we've benefited the most, is that it's really forced us to look at, well, what might account for some of that? And I think some of it are some of the assumptions that we've made, one of which is, in hindsight, seems kind of obvious, is there's this huge gap in time. These students are completing the summer work experience in August, and we're not even really eligible to exit successfully until, let's say, May. So there's lots of things going on there. So I think one of the things that it's forced us to do is to look at what might be happening during that period of time, and how might we adjust and modify the way we have the program designed to try to get at more of kind of that causality, if you will, to try to kind of capture some of that momentum that's being built through the summer work experience and have it carry on into employment. And in fact, that's what the word momentum has come up quite a bit, because one of the things that the summer work experience has taught us is that it does create a lot of energy with those employers, with those students, with those families, but then they go back to school and they have this long period of time before they're really ready to fully commit to post-secondary employment opportunities. So I think one of the things we're looking at is how do we maybe dovetail other work programs in with the summer work experience that do occur during the school year, and or looking at ways we might be able to replicate what's going on with the summer work experience more closer to the actual exit of school. And so that's really kind of, I know I've run out of time here, but that's really kind of in a nutshell some of the big takeaways from what we've learned. I think going back to my initial point, I think was the biggest kind of insight for me was that this project and this process and going through this really forced us to ask different questions than we had been asking before. I think we'd started making an assumption that just because we were doing this wonderful thing in the summer that it was going to have these outcomes. We still know and believe it's a wonderful program. It has nothing to do with the program, I believe, but more about informing us as to how can we make the program work better within the existing VR structure. So I think from that perspective, it was a huge success, and to be quite honest, probably more informative than had we found these really robust, positive results. So again, and I skipped over this at the beginning, but I want to echo Jacob's comments. Dr. Kate Anderson and Dr. Sue P. were just huge in this process and really provided a tremendous amount of support and mentorship along the way. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to echo both Jacob and Chris in thanking Sue, Kate, and everybody at the PEQA program. I learned more than I can even say in the 10 minutes here, but for my job in particular as a consultant and right now an interim director, giving me the skills to really evaluate the programs that we have within our small agency. This whole program was invaluable, and the textbooks, all the materials for ongoing, it's going to have a lasting impact on our entire agency. So what I chose to do was to look at our case review instruments. With WIOA, of course, we all know all of the performance measures changed. And trying to track those, trying to pull that data, we have a one-person QA team. So really, it's not going to happen. So we need something that our supervisors can use, that our counselors can actually use as a guide. And that was my purpose, that was my goal for this project. So I started with just looking at asking myself the questions, what are the WIOA performance indicators pertaining to case documentation? And is the case review instrument that I'm developing reliable and valid? To get there, I first reviewed materials. I reviewed the RSA Monitoring and Technical Assistance Guide. I reviewed the recent monitoring visit reports, primarily Florida, Michigan, had some great conversations with Bob Doyle, and reviewed the existing case review instruments used by other agencies. I don't know if Faith is still here from Nevada, but she was a huge help in sharing the tools that are used there. From there, I did a needs assessment. I did a short case review, just 10 random cases, just to test the things that I had come up with thus far. Then I developed the review instrument a little bit further, and then did a more in-depth validation and application study. I already said all that. I conducted a survey of all of our counselors. We have 16 counselors and regional directors across the state. What was their understanding of WIOA? Do they even know what it is that we're asking them to give us and what we're asking them to document? I actually got a 100% response rate on the survey. And then I conducted a focus group with our supervisors and program directors. What is their perception of quality documentation? We all have our own. So if you're going to have all of these different people utilizing the same instrument, we needed to come up with a scoring scale or something that could be used by everyone, but still be valid and not be 16 different perceptions of what we're looking for. I then reviewed 10 cases just to see, was my initial tool pulling the information I was looking for? Was I getting the documentation I was looking for? Was our case management system even set up to collect that information? I then broke down the categories, the performance measures, into 4 different categories, looking at the quality of counseling services and documentation, and this included all of the intake information, including documentation of, does the person receive benefits? Were they referred to benefits counseling? Evidence of informed choice, and was the comprehensive assessment of VR needs present in the case, and was it complete? Category 2 was quality of vocational preparation, goal, training, and placement. Looking at voc exploration, labor market information, measurable skill gains. Was the person referred to an employment consultant? Did the job placement information include wages? The quality of closures, the federal compliance when it's closed successfully, sufficient documentation and review when closed without employment, and then compliance with regulations, laws, and policies. Were all timelines met for eligibility in IPE? All signatures in place and dated correctly? Comparable benefits documented? Did expenditures follow all policies? Were all goods and services included on the IPE? And if transition or supported employment case, did all documentation follow policy? The rating scale that we came up with was a 1, they were minimally or not in compliance. 2 was mostly compliant, most of the important aspects were there. Or 3, they were fully compliant with no major omissions. And then there was an NA because there's cases that maybe they haven't reached that level, they haven't reached service, or they're not a transition case, but we still have all the questions. At this point, we took the case review instrument, and to check for validation, I met with 3 regional supervisors, the VR Consumer Services Director, and myself, and we did 20 cases. We wanted to do more, but there wasn't time. We pulled 20 random cases from across the state. We had each person review a case, and then it moved on to another person. So there were 2 reviews done on each case, and then we met to just make sure that we had either the same results, or if not, discuss why not. But it gave us, in the end, we had a final score for that case, so we had the validation that was needed for this. 77 cases were also done by our counselor trainer, and then I went back and reviewed those as well, looking for the compliance issues. As you can see, most of our cases didn't do very well, and we found a lot of things missing. We found a lot of performance measures that were not aware, that were not there for them to document. We found in the survey a lack of understanding. They had heard of WIOA. They knew that we weren't looking just at 26s anymore, but they truly didn't know everything that they were supposed to be entering. I also took this information and did a mini RSA monitoring visit, and we found really areas that we needed to focus on. By doing that, we answered all the questions in the MTAG, we pulled all the data, and we discovered that while there's some great elements there, while there's some great performance measures, that data will definitely give us some great information. we weren't able to document it. We weren't documenting it correctly. Our case management system wasn't documenting it, and we needed to make a lot of changes. So with this, the implementation, it's created a path for development of training to better inform our VR staff of compliance needs. It's another tool for counselors to use when they're doing case management. Even if they're not filling out the actual tool, they're looking at the questions. Do I have this in my case? Is this present? Did I get this done in time? It's also for supervisors, for QA staff. It also helps us look at our AWARE system. Where do we need to modify that? Where do we need to do some customization with AWARE? And then the increased use of this, we're hoping will ultimately increase our compliance with federal performance when they do hit us with a monitoring visit, because we know it's coming. So future implications, the training and provision of desk reference guides would increase accurate data entry, and we're hoping to use this tool to create those guides. Targeted case reviews should be completed monthly for specific measures, which will inform better training. Modification of AWARE will assist in streamlining data entry, and the implementation of a consistent case review instrument will provide a higher compliance rate and a better overall picture of our agency performance. So I thank you all.
Great. Pardon me. Thank you for the presentations. I've learned so much through our participants, and just you can see each participant really designs their own project, works with their mentor, and designs a project that's going to be meaningful and also have long-lasting impact, hopefully within your agencies, and or create blueprints for future evaluation and quality assurance. So thank you. At this point, it's my absolute pleasure to be able to issue our certificates of completion to our graduates. So Jacob Choi. Chris Claus. And last but certainly not least, Elaine Robertson. Thank you very much for your ongoing support, and we look forward to continue working with you in the year to come. Congratulations. And at this point, we're going to exit the stage, and Michael Shoemaker, would you like to join us up here?
There's a beautiful feeling in this room right now. Can you feel it? I can. It's because we are one. We are united and devoted and resolute to the service of people with disabilities. It is why we are here, and we will not give up in that. Being a member of a community practice is a wonderful thing. And so one of the things that I do as part of that is listen to the other members of the community of practice. And so I have had multiple requests to do this, so I'm going to do it. And that is, what I'd like to ask you to do is, if this is your first year here, would you please stand or indicate in some way if this is your first year here? Okay. If you've been to 2 to 5 summits, would you raise your hand or somehow indicate that? If you've been to 6 to 10 summits, would you raise your hand or indicate something like that? If you've been to 11, if you've been to 12, could you raise your hand? The most important thing to say, I think, about that is that we need you all to know that you belong. Whether it's your first year or your 12th year, within a community of practice, you belong. You're home, you're needed, and you're wanted, and we'd like to have you participate and be a part of us. So what is the Summit Group? The Summit Group is a community of practice committed to professional development, your development of vocational rehabilitation program evaluators, and to the improvement of performance management within state vocational rehabilitation agencies. This community started in September 2007 with great focus, attention, and work from Michael Millington, who was at Utah State University at that time, David Vandergut, Dr. David Vandergut, also Scott Sabella, who was at the University of Northern Colorado at that time, and myself. The Summit Group founded the annual educational experience that you've been attending for these past 2 days, and the first one was held in Salt Lake City in September of 2008. I remember that moment because there were 47 participants from 11 different states, and there was an exuberance that is very difficult to describe. A concept or an idea that somehow, some way, you now had someone to talk to about what you never had really an opportunity to talk to with someone about before, and something that mattered so deeply to you that you knew that somehow you would be better because you had been there. After that particular conference or the summit, by the way, we didn't call it the first annual summit. We called it the summit because we never thought we were going to have another one, that type of thing. And so we walked outdoors of the Quality Inn in Salt Lake City, and I was having a conversation with Scott Sabella, and I said, Scott, be honest with me, do we have anything here? And Scott, you may know, he said, I think we might, is what he said. And I said, well, if that's the case, then someone's going to have to host it next year. And he immediately said, I'll host it, it's in Denver. And so, to the benefit of someone who may have been teetering on the top of a little bit of exhilaration, and at that particular time, Scott was my steady, he was my rock to let me know, yeah, we can do this, and we can go forward with it. We have 412 Summit Group members that are a part of the Summit Group email listserv. Participation in the Summit Group as a community practice is absolutely free. The Summit Navigators is a 6-person team that is a guiding committee to assist Summit Group and its development. It's not a board of directors. It's meant to be a sounding post of the Summit Group members and then bring those things to fruition that you desire and want to know about. Their primary purpose of the navigators is to both listen and to ensure that the community takes direction that is consistent with your perspectives and the things that you need. I wanted to take some time to talk about what are the unifying values of this community of practice, because it is unique. The first value is that we are better off together than going it alone. In my experience, the best decision-making comes from the wisdom of the many and not the fewer one. Navigating the complexities of your day-to-day work, and I've appreciated that as I've listened to you the last day and a half about how things have become even more complex and are proceeding in that direction, becomes much easier and more effective when you communicate and collaborate with other states and with other vocational rehabilitation program evaluators. An example of this from my own practice and experience is the numerous times that I communicated with Kristen Rowe from Virginia, Steve Collins from Florida, Pisnu Balam from West Virginia on the topic of return on investment. Hundreds of hours of penetrating questions and penetrating answers. And I'm a better professional because of what they have shared with me. Their feedback and input were invaluable to me at the time. Their friendship and companionship invaluable to me now as well. The second value is the best is yet to come. It's not just a song that made Frank Sinatra a little bit more famous, but it's the attitude of the best is yet to come. And what it really means is it's an everlasting strategic position of the Summit Group as a community of practice. You may have noticed in your communication with other vocational rehabilitation professionals at times that there can be some negativism, some cynicism, some doomsdayism that might creep in once in a while to a conversation. I recall in 2007 being told by a high official within the vocational rehabilitation program that he hoped that by the time that he intended to retire in 2 years, that the vocational rehabilitation program would be in existence. Well, we're still standing. We still care. We still help. We still do what we can, and we'll continue to do that. And yet, the best is yet to come really means that we believe firmly in continuous quality improvement. Today's excellence will be the future's mediocrity, I promise. Innovation through group thinking and discussion is one of the best ways to face the future without fear and with great confidence and peace. The third value is that program evaluation is a potent form of advocacy for people with disabilities. What better example than what was just shared up here a few moments ago? Did you hear how many people were involved in these studies? Did you hear how many people were participating in these learning activities and employment preparation activities? They weren't just hundreds of people. There were thousands of people involved. And this was something that agencies are doing to assist other people with disabilities. It's potent. So when program evaluation leads to policy and procedural changes, it has the capacity to have a positive impact on thousands of state vocational rehabilitation clients one at a time. But you know what I just said? To the mother of David, it doesn't matter. It's that you provided an opportunity for David. That's what matters. Never forget, no matter how many people you serve, it's the one. It's the one. So, as you do your work, may I encourage you in swinging someone over with you, okay? Allow me to share an experience which will illuminate this principle a little bit more clearly of what I'm talking about. When I was a young boy, my dad and I would go fishing near Seal Beach, California. We would get up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday morning and head for a rock pier, which was adjacent to the wooden Seal Beach Pier there in Southern California that is still there today. A rock pier is where boulders of rocks are dropped into the ocean until the boulders are about 5 to 10 feet above the water line is all. My dad preferred fishing off the rock pier because large fish like to hide among the boulders, and there was less danger of getting the fishing line snagged on the pilings in the wooden pier. There are some inherent dangers with rock piers, which may explain why many of them are starting to disappear in Southern California and along its coast. First, the rocks often get wet and slippery from ocean mist. Depending on what types of shoes you wear, you could slip very easily on that surface. Second, these piers were not designated structures, and so there would be times where there were great spaces between the boulders, making it difficult to get from one end of the pier to the other to do what you were trying to do. And it was on one early summer morning that my dad and I found such a difficult spot in One Rock Pier. My dad, with his early morning enthusiasm for fishing, which I don't know is matched by any other human being, had just jumped with all of his gear from one boulder to another boulder. I looked at the span that my father had just jumped over, and then I looked down, and I was horrified what I saw. I looked at this, and all I saw beneath me was raging waves and a pit of darkness in which I could only assume were jagged rocks waiting to receive me. I was only 7 years old at the time, and I could not estimate the distance between the boulders because I didn't know how to. I stood, but I remember that I stood there for a long time trying to figure it out. Sometimes I know you feel that way. Sometimes you look in and all you see is darkness. Sometimes I know that all you see is the jagged rocks beneath, possibly. And you're afraid, and you don't know what to do. So I could see the worry lines on my own father's face. He first asked me to throw all my fishing gear over to him. I did so. Then he asked me to lean forward towards him from the boulder as far as I could and do so safely. I leaned over, and I remember trembling in fear. Without warning and still in the darkness, somewhere between the new day's light and that darkness, I felt a powerful force grasp both my wrists and swing me over the span with such speed that it left my head dizzy. When my vision cleared, I saw that I was in my father's arms, and I could hear his silent prayer of thanks that I was safe. We continued our trip, and I saw that day one of the most beautiful sunrises over the Pacific Ocean that I ever will see. What I'm asking you to do is to do something small or large. I'm asking you to swing someone over a little bit. Risk a little. Care a little more a little. Care about other people's troubles a little more. Make a difference for someone that you don't even know. Nobody knows everything, but share what you do know. Even if this is your first time here, share what you do know. And share also what you need to know so that someone else can help you too. Be ardent friends of learning. Be a scholar in your profession. Know what you know. Become more knowledgeable in what you know. I firmly believe that this community practice will always exist as long as there are two evaluators willing to talk, listen, hope, and learn from one another. The Summit Group is kind of like a young adolescent. being now 12 years old. May you love this youth as much as I have. With great affection and confidence, I hand over this promising adolescent for guidance into adulthood. At the end of this month, I will be discontinuing my official relationship with the Summit Group. I will always welcome occasional email communication from Summit Group members to know how the community of practice is going. It has nothing to do with the Summit Group. It has to do with me being able to explore teaching parenting classes as an adjunct faculty member. I remember I became a father when I was 24. That's been a while ago. I can think of how terrifying it might be for someone becoming a father at 24 today. And so I just care that maybe in some way, small or great, I can help in that endeavor. But don't let me leave without providing you an Irish and Gaelic blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sunshine warm upon your face and the rain fall soft upon your field. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you today and always.
Michael. I've only been with this organization for a couple of years, but it's clear that your commitment and your participation, guidance, and leadership have really created something special. I'm sitting next to Jerry over there. He's going, oh, go Michael, go. And, you know, I think you have tremendous support in this room. And please know that you're always welcome at this conference. For, I think, on behalf of the room here, thank you again for everything you've done. And before we bring Maine on to pass the official torch to Florida, I want to remind you that a lot of our folks have left early today, and they left extra lunch treats for you to take with you. So if anyone chooses to have an apple or a soda or another lunch to take with them on the road, please feel free. And if not, don't worry about it. We'll do a different head count next year. So without further ado, State of Maine Host Committee, come on up.
Well, I'm glad Mary did an introduction there because it gave me time to compose myself after listening to Michael there. That was very moving. And Michael, I want to echo what was just shared by Mary, that can't say enough to thank you for all the work you did to light this spark and get this going. I remember it's been over 11 years now since I started having a bunch of calls going back and forth about different ways to measure and look at different aspects of rehab. And you were such a great resource for me through the years. So I really appreciate it. And again, want to just take my time to say thank you. I want to take this time to welcome and encourage you all to come to next year's VR Summit, which will be in Florida. We are definitely missing being there with you this year, but looking forward to having you come down here to be with us. One of the things I would say is that you're coming during one of many Floridians' favorite season, college football season. But seriously, it'd be a time when the weather starts to turn. one of the things that I had listed as something I wanted to highlight, I think really ties back to what Michael said, which is the best is yet to come. And a lot of that is because we have so many things that are continuing to evolve that we continue to want information and resources on and to continue to collaborate on. And as much as you folks just sat through a series of sessions, we've looked at the agendas, been jealous of not being at some of the agenda items, but started thinking about some of those aspects of things we still want to know about. With WIOA, what's the tension spots for counselors between case management and counseling and how that impacts things. I know you saw about the statistical adjustment model for MSGs, but we've got the other common measures coming after that. We've got new 9/11 changes that are going in July 1st, and how do we adjust to that? Not to mention using the quarterly 9/11 data now that we have a longer track record of those data elements being in our system. Counselors, those new meanings are, and so the accuracy is improved. Not to mention, on a much sadder note, is that more and more states are in order of selection. And so how do we as program evaluators and data folks able to help agency decision makers use the information we have to best process things in order of selection? All of that to say is we're really looking forward to having a special time together next fall in Florida and having all of you join us down here.
So we have part of the main team up here, and we have many, many thank yous to offer, but we wanted first to pass the torch to the Florida team. Do we still have the Florida team? Have we lost them?
No, he's still there. He's on there.
Oh, okay. So some of us are rather literal. So when it was suggested that we pass the torch, we decided to, in fact, do that. We were hoping to do this in person, but we will do it virtually, and then a surprise box will be arriving in Florida. But Maine has many lighthouses, and Florida has many lighthouses. So Annette Stevens' daughter, who is an artist, decided to create a torch for us. Annette, do you want to display it and sort of explain what we've got here?
Can you see it?
I don't know if you're able to see it, Dawn, but we've got the pine tree on one side. Maine is the pine tree state. And then we've got the palm tree on the other side.
Oh, beautiful.
So we're very excited about having the event in Florida. Next year, we would be happy to pass on any of the lessons learned in the planning for this event. PEQA-TAC and the entire planning committee was a huge help. So as I said, we have many thank yous to offer, but could we start by just thanking all of the presenters for sharing their time and energy in offering their presentations. And then I have a fairly lengthy thank you list. So first of all, the PEQA-TAC team, Kate Anderson, Terry Donovan, Jennifer Gundlach-Klatt, Jen, I hope I said that correctly, and Mary McManus. Also, the Conference Planning Committee, along with PEQA-TAC, as many have mentioned, we have been planning this event for a year now, so it's just very gratifying to see it come to fruition. Alyssa Estes from Oklahoma VR, Sam Fenderson from Maine Division of Oak Rehab, Betsy Hopkins from WNTAC NDI team, Harriet Ann Litwin from Delaware VR, Kirsten Rowe from Virginia VR, Kelly Scott from Kentucky VR, Michael Shoemaker from Utah State Office of Rehabilitation, Annette Stevens from Maine Division for Blind and Visually Impaired, as well as Douglas Zhu, our RSA Program Officer. Could we have another round of applause, please? So with that, we still have 2 more sessions to participate in this afternoon, but this is the last plenary session, so we just wanted to wish you safe travels, and it was wonderful to host you all in the beautiful state of Maine.